Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. The question is, can you receive emergency care outside of the VA? And most importantly, will the VA cover that expense? I'll tell you that there has been a lot of veterans holding the bag with some steep costs regarding their health care in an emergency situation. So, with that, let's dive into this. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Hitting that thumbs up and watching the video are the two ways that this is how, whatever, right? It's how YouTube pushes it out. Anyway, jumping into this, I'm happy to share it with you. I'm going to pull this directly from the VA's website, so essentially straight from the horse's mouth, and I will put all of it or as much of it as I can in the description of the video for you as well. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider being a member. You can do that by going to the homepage. You'll see highlighted members and you'll see a join button there. Thank you so much. I appreciate all you members, subscribers, thumbs uppers, watcher, whatever. I appreciate everybody. Thank you. All right, so let's jump into this. Getting emergency care at non-VA facilities. Important topic, especially for those who only have VA as coverage, or even if you don't, someday you might only have VA for coverage. So it's important to know this up front, right? Swimming upstream and getting this information is much better than getting it after the fact. So let's move on here. If you think your life or health is in danger, obviously call 911 or go to the nearest emergency department, is what this says. You don't need to check with us first, says the VA. But if you go to a non-VA, I love when it's followed up with a but if you go to a non-VA facility, even one that's in our community care network, you must follow certain rules so that we can cover the costs of care. Okay, so guess what? If you don't follow the rules, they won't pay for it. So this is why this is very important. I mean, if you take an ambulance ride, it can get expensive quickly. So let's move on. Keep reading on this page to learn what you need to know if you go to a non-VA facility for emergency care. Now, I've done this before, so if there's any little highlights that I can share along the way of this process, I will let you know as well. All right, what you need to know if you go to a non-VA facility for emergency care. The facility must be an emergency department. So you can't just go to your local, doctor's office, kind of a, outpatient clinic type of a thing. You need to actually go to a hospital that has an emergency room department where you drive in with the ambulance and you go to the emergency room. So we can only, they say only, cover the costs of emergency care at an emergency department. An emergency department is a facility that has staff and equipment to provide emergency care, like a hospital or freestanding emergency department. Urgent care facilities do not qualify as emergency departments. If you're not sure what type of facility you should go to, we can help. Okay, so very important, right? There's a lot of these urgent care kind of drop-in doctor's offices. Those do not count. You have to go to an emergency department. All right. And look, here's the thing. It's if you believe that you are in a state of emergency, right? Chest pains, whatever it is, right? Error on the side of emergency room, don't go to the urgent care because they won't pay for it. All right, so let's move on. Here's the important part, or one of the important parts. We, the VA, right, must get notified of your care within 72 hours. You have 72 hours to tell the VA, hey, I went to the emergency room and, oh, guess what? I'm actually calling you from the emergency room on day 2 or day 3, right? You need to make sure that you contact them within 72 hours. My suggestion here is if you carry your VA ID card, your medical card, right, for VA care, maybe write down the phone number and put a little sticky note on the back of it, call in case of emergency. And that way, let's say that you're passed out, or you don't know what's going on, and they got you under or whatever, and they at the hospital take your wallet and they're flipping through to see who your insurance is, see who you are, that type of stuff. Maybe they will call because they see that phone number, right? So anyway, the phone number is 844-724-7842, and having that number on the back, just a little sticky note folded around it or whatever, is, it's in case of an emergency, right? In case you end up in an emergency situation, you have that, and you can call if you're coherent enough within the 72 hours. So if you can't do it, you can ask the provider to notify them as well, and the provider can utilize the VA emergency care reporting portal, or they can call the 844-724-7842 number. Again, it says we must get notification within 72 hours of when your emergency care starts, which probably is the ambulance ride, to be honest with you. So important to understand these time frames. It is a very, very short time frame. Let's move on. We prefer that the provider notify us, but if they don't, you or someone acting on your behalf can notify us instead. So they don't really care who calls them to tell them. It can be you, your spouse, significant other, a child, a caregiver, or the hospital themselves. But somebody needs to contact the VA within 72 hours. All right, moving on. We can only cover emergency care when you meet certain requirements. Keep reading to learn more about eligibility requirements for emergency mental health care and other types of emergency care. Emergency care eligibility requirements. Eligibility for emergency mental health care. In most cases, we will provide or cover the cost of your emergency mental health care and up to 90 days of related services, even if you're not enrolled in VA healthcare. Interesting, right? So moving on. If a healthcare provider or a trained crisis responder determines you're at risk of immediate self-harm, we can provide or cover the costs of your care if you meet at least one of these requirements. So there's 3 bullet points here. You must meet one of them. You were sexually assaulted, battered, or harassed while serving in the armed forces. That's 1. 2, you served on active duty for more than 24 months and did not get a dishonorable discharge. Okay, so you served at least 2 years and you did not have a dishonorable discharge. The third option here is you served more than 100 days under a combat exclusion or in support of a contingency operation, including as a member of the reserve, which I would assume would include the National Guard, and didn't get a dishonorable discharge. You meet this requirement if you served directly or if you operated an unmanned aerial vehicle from another location. If you go to a non-VA emergency department for help, tell the staff you're a veteran. Ask them to contact us right away. Very, very important. All right, moving on. Eligibility for all other emergency care. General eligibility requirements. By law, we can only cover the costs of your care at a non-VA emergency department if you meet all of these requirements. There are 4 bullet points. You're enrolled in VA health care, or you have a qualifying exemption from enrollment. And number 2, a VA healthcare facility or other federal facility that could provide the needed care wasn't feasibly available, meaning it was too far away for you to get there fast enough to get to the emergency care you needed. And I'm going to add in there, or the ambulance just took you to the nearest place, or you were incapacitated and you didn't have the ability to tell the driver where you wanted to go. So that's what happened to me. I mean, not that part. I was hit on the freeway riding a motorcycle, which was fun. And Went down and ambulance came, and I said, can you take me to the VA? And they said, it's too far. You can pick this one or this one. You get two choices. And so VA was not an option with the ambulance. So, nothing was feasibly available. All right, so moving on, two more bullet points here that you must meet. A person with an average knowledge of health and medicine, called a prudent lay person, would reasonably believe that a delay in seeking care would have put your life in health or danger. So in other words, a normal, competent person would go, hey, look, you're having like horrible chest pains. You have high blood pressure. It makes sense that you might be getting ready to have a heart attack, or you're having a heart attack. Let's get you to the hospital now, right? Just a reasonable kind of outlook on the situation. Next one, you meet our other requirements based on your specific situation, including the time limit for us to receive your claim. Keep reading to learn more about the requirements for different situations. We only cover non-VA emergency care until we can safely transfer you to a VA or other federal facility. The only time this rule doesn't apply is if the community care provider contacts us and we can't accept your transfer. So if you need to stay there for X amount of days and the VA has a facility not too far away and they want to transfer you to the VA facility, that could be a potential opportunity that would come to fruition. Or if they're like, hey, we're at full capacity, we can't take anybody else, you keep them there, would be another option. So I guess you just don't know what's going to happen if you have an extended stay. Emergency care coverage requirements. In addition to the general eligibility requirements, you must also meet these other requirements based on your specific situation. So authorized emergency care, we only consider your emergency care authorized if your care meets the requirements listed here. Your care must meet both of these requirements. The community emergency facility is in our community care network, and we get notified of your care within 72 hours of when you got to the emergency department. So I guess that's when they count it, not from the time you step foot in the ambulance. Different bills anyway, so you get the ambulance bill and then you get the hospital bill. All right, so if we don't get notified of your care within 72 hours, we won't automatically deny your claim, but you'll then need to meet the requirements for unauthorized emergency care. Unauthorized emergency care for service-connected conditions. If we don't consider your care authorized, we may still cover the cost of your care if you meet at least one of these requirements. You must meet at least one of these requirements. There's 3 bullets. Your emergency care was for a service-connected condition or a condition that made your service-connected condition worse, or you have a VA disability rating of permanent and totally disabled, or you need the care to help you return to the VA Veterans Readiness and Employment Program. Next, we define a service-connected condition as a condition you have a VA disability rating for. If you've already paid for your care yourself, we may be able to pay you back or reimburse you. Next one here, unauthorized emergency care for non-service connected conditions. If you got emergency care for a non-service connected condition, we may still cover the cost of your care if you meet all of the requirements listed here. You must meet all of these requirements. There's 3 bullets. You got the care in a hospital emergency department or other facility that provides emergency care to the public. And you got care at a VA or in-network community facility during the 24 months, 2 years before you got the emergency care. Interesting. So it says you must meet all of these. So again, I guess this goes back to it's good to kind of stay on it with getting care from the VA. So let's read that again. The second one, it must be met. You got care at a VA or in-network community facility during the 24 months before you got the emergency care. Last one here, you need the care because of an injury or accident. All right, moving on here, it says, and you and the emergency provider must have already tried all other ways that you could could to get a third party like another insurance company to pay for the treatment. So if you were hit by another person, trying to get that other person's insurance to pay for your medical bills, for example. All right, next one here. If you have other healthcare insurance, we have limits to what we can cover. If your insurance doesn't fully cover the cost of your emergency care, we may cover certain costs that you must pay yourself. But we can't cover those costs if the insurance won't pay because you or the provider didn't follow the rules of the insurance company. So if the insurance company says, hey, we're going to pay 10 grand towards this, but you need to meet these 3 things, and you don't meet those 3 things because you missed the opportunity, and then they say, well, now we're not going to pay that 10 grand. The VA looks at that as, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do to get that 10 grand. We're not going to pay for it for you now. So it says here, for example, we can't cover the costs if you or the provider failed to submit a bill for medical records within the company's time limits, or if you haven't already tried all ways to appeal the payment denial. If your other insurance charges copays, we can't reimburse you for the copays. Last one, emergency care in countries outside of the United States of America. We can only pay for emergency care outside of the U.S. if the care is related to a service-connected condition. We define the service-connected condition as a condition you have a VA disability rating for. If you have any questions regarding the Foreign Medical Care Program, you can contact 877-345-8179. Getting close to the end here. What to do if you're charged for emergency care? What happens if you get a bill in the mail for your emergency care? So if you get a bill for emergency care at a non-VA facility and you think we should cover the costs, we can help. Call the VA at 877-881-7618. They're there Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And it says here that they will go over the charges with you to help figure out who should cover the costs for your care. They said that they can also help resolve billing issues with community partners. And with that, that will conclude this video. I hope it sheds a little light on that. At the end of the day, the bottom line is look, if you have questions regarding your specific situation, contact the VA ahead of time and ask them, hey, here's my situation. What happens if X happens to me? How does that get handled with regard to emergency care? The big takeaway here is you must contact the VA within 72 hours, no matter what. That is probably the most important piece that I like to share, is the 72-hour aspect. So with that, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.